Alright, so welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, we're trying to see how to implement filter from scratch. So in the previous tutorials, we saw how to implement two of the three pillars of functional programming, map and reduce. Now let's see how to implement filter. But before then, let's understand what filter does. So filter is a function that applies a particular predicate or a Boolean valued function to an iterable. So it can be a sequence, it can be an array, and it's going to generate a new iterable containing the elements or the items that satisfy that particular condition. So if the conditions are met, it's going to return those ones. So the idea behind it is something like this. Let's say you have a sieve, right, or a filter. So you're going to pass in some stuff, and there's a size for this, right? So anything that is less than this size is going to pass through. That means that it's going to be filtered through, right? But those that are bigger than this size is going to be retained here. So that is how filter does, right? So it's going to sieve a list of items, a sequence of items. Those that meet the condition, those that satisfy the condition, those that are bigger, right, are going to be retained, and then the rest are going to go, right? That is a basic understanding. So let's see how to do that. So from scratch. So we'll be, let's say you have a number here, we have some values here, right, and we want to be able to filter them, right? So let's see, we want to get all the odd numbers from this, or the even numbers. So how to do that? So the first one is I can just go with for I in, let's say this, we want to get the odd numbers, so or get not odd numbers, let's get negative numbers. So how do I get all the negative numbers? So as we already know, the condition for negative numbers is that anything that is greater, right, s is greater than, anything greater than 0 is positive, anything less than 0 is negative, right? That's the basic understanding. So you can just look through it. So for I in the number that I have, then I'm going to say that, okay, we are going to print if it meets. So if I is less, right, if I is less than 0, that means it's going to be what? A negative number, right? So print that particular number. So only those that are negative are going to be printed out. So this condition has been met, right? That is the basic understanding behind how to use filter. So we are applying a condition. The condition is an if condition. If the condition is true, return those particular values. So these are all the conditions, these are all the elements that meet our condition. So let's see how to do the same thing with inbuilt Python function. So we can just go back with this. Is inbuilt function. So it's going to take the inbuilt function, is going to go with this filter, it takes in a function, right, and then it's going to take in a sequence. That's the basic understanding. So this is the rule, right? That is how it works here. So I go back here, this is how it works. So let's see how to do that. It's going to be a filter. I'm going to create a function. So let's first create a function that get if something is positive. So it's positive. So it's my mouse, don't know, not my mouse, my keyboard is new, so I'm getting used to it. You're going to pass in the value of x, and then when you pass in the value, you're going to evaluate and see if it meets. So the same thing we did above, you're going to just return s is equal to, or you can just put the same condition we had here. So s, anything greater than 0 is positive. So now if I come back here and I just pass in it's positive, let's test the function, it's positive, let's say it's 4 positive, it's going to return true, right? So that is what is being evaluated. So if it returns true, that means that the condition is met. So we can, how do we apply this function to the entire stack? So we can now come back here and do the same thing we did here. And we can now replace it with our condition. If I replace this one with our condition here, it's still going to work. If I replace it as positive, right, that particular value, right, so this you can just go with is positive, or if it's this, we must close it here. S is not defined. Yeah, so it's positive. You are looking through it now. See that these are the ones that are positive, right? Very nice. So we have replaced our condition with a function, right? So now let's do the same thing with filter. Since we have a function, we can just go with this to filter the function, which is positive, and then the next one is going to be the number, right, or the sequence that we want to work on. Run it. It's going to give us an iterable, which is going to be very fast. If I check for the time of it, so with this option, so time, you can see that it is very, very fast. And that is 207 nanoseconds, very fast, because using generator behind the scene. But in case I want to get the values, I'll just copy this entire stuff and then call next on it by using list. So I go with list and I can pass in this option. This is more optimized, right? Using the generator concept is more optimized. So that is how filter is. So it takes in a function that returns true or false, and then it applies it on a sequence and returns those that meet that condition. How do you do the same thing with your own Python function from scratch? So let's implement it from scratch. So we're going to be implementing it. Filter from scratch. So in case I want to implement it, we must have a function that takes a sequence, and then it's going to apply another function that returns true or false, right? So let's do the same thing we did. We can just do this. So we can just do the same thing. So def, let's say extract. Go here, say positive. I can just pass in my sequence, right? So this is going to be my sequence. Then I can just do the same thing. So for we have a list, so result, that is what have been returned. So this is going to be in a format of a list, right? So for I in that particular sequence that we are now going to check and see if it meets that condition. So the condition is going to be if S or if I is less than 0, that means it's negative. If it is greater than 0, that means that it is positive, right? So now I can just go with appending it. So we can now append it. So result dot append to this option here, and now we can return the result. So this is a simple function. So now I can just apply this particular function to my sequence. So extract positive, those methods are positive, and we are causing the same thing, right? So that the idea behind filter is that we are looking through them, right, and we're applying the condition. If the condition is met, we append it, right? So let's implement it from scratch. So it's going to be this option. I won't must take in every kind of function. So I'll make it bigger. Hope you can see it well. My filter, right? It takes in the function and it takes in the sequence. Then what is it going to do? It's going to look through that particular sequence. So let's get our result. The same thing we did above. We are going to get all the results that we have, right? So for I in that particular sequence that we have, if the sequence is met, so if the function is being applied, so we need to apply the function. So if we can just do it like, let's say the result, or let's go this here, R for the result that's been returned. Then now I can just apply my function to it. So the func, pass in the iterable, and this must return true. So we are going to say if the R is true, then we can now append it to it. So result dot append that particular number that we are iterating over. Then now we can return the entire result. This is okay, right? It works, but we have to optimize it, right? Because calling this one, we can optimize it in a better way. But let's check and see. So I just go back again and apply it on that function. So we just go back and see my filter then I'll pass in the function, right? So we're going to pass in the function which is positive, and then the number. That's what we did above. We have gotten the same thing, right? Very nice. So the same thing we got, but we can optimize this and make it better. So if I check for the time of this, so if I go with time it of this, time it of my filter, so let's go with this, copy this one here to save as time. If you're enjoying this, let me know. If I check the time of this, is going to be more, it will take more time than the default one, which is 207 nanoseconds, because it's using generator behind the scene and it's more optimized. And this is going to take more time because it is looping through them. That is 1.94 microseconds, which is, it may not look big, but it's big, right? So how do you optimize our filter function? So the idea is that first you have a function and a sequence. We are looping through the sequence. We are applying that particular function. If that function is a function, right, which is going to return true or false, meet that condition, right? So this is going to be if the condition is met, right? And this is going to apply the condition, or evaluate the condition, or evaluate. So this is first for we apply the function on the entire stuff, evaluating it if it is true. If the condition is met, we are going to return a result. But this is not the best option, right? So let's optimize it. So we can just copy this entire stuff here, and now we can just go with an optimized version, or a better version, optimized, not refactored one. So let's do that. So how do you make it better? So I can just paste it here, and now let's optimize. So this is repetition. We can take this entire stuff from here. You can take this stuff, you don't need this, right? And then bring it here, right? It's true. This is one of the ways, right? But it's going to work. If you use this option, it's going to work. If I go back and I run it again, it's still going to work, right? But this is still tautology, right? If function is true, right? The function that we are taking is already returning true, so we don't need to say if function is true again, right? I just repeating ourselves, but I just wanted to see the point. This is 1.79. Now let's go back again, and still return the same result. If I go back and I check it out, it's still returning the same result. It's working behind the scene. If I go with this option here, right, it's still retaining the same result. By changing it, you have reduced it a little bit from 1.79 to 1.9 to 1.7. Now let's even optimize it better. So we can just take this one off. Don't need to say if it is true, because the function is returning true already. Let's call this as filter 2. And finally, if I run it, let's go back here, copy this, and then you just go back with this. This is filter 2. If I check it out, you can see that it's going to be a little bit almost the same. It's still going to return the same result as we're having. So filter, as we have seen, is going to make sure that the conditions are met. If the conditions are not met, it's going to return them not. It's like 1.7, right? So it's a little bit better, but yeah, 1.79, 1.7, right? By just changing it. So we have seen how it works. So it takes in a sequence and a function, we iterate through them. If the condition is met, that is if condition is true, right? Very important. It's going to append them, right? We can use a generator function to help us with that. You can also use generator if you want, right? But we'll leave it up to you so that you also work on it, because the generator option makes it more performant. Now let's do the opposite. There's something called filter false, right? That is the opposite of filter. So this is going to only work in case you want to get those items that do not meet the condition, right? So that's the reason I understand. So this is filter, or I can even call it as sieve here, sieved or retain, right? Those that are not, yeah, I think sieved is better, right? Those that went through, those that did not meet the condition. So how do we do that? So there is a simple tool. This is Python's default option. So let's call it a Python default option called iter tools. So so it's going to be from iter tools import filter false. And then, having understood the same idea, you can see how iter tools will implement filter false. So this is what gave us a positive value, right? This is if the conditions are met. So let's print. It's going to be this option. The condition is met. Right? This is if the conditions are met. Going to return those ones. I'm going to create another one that do the same thing if the conditions are not met. Or met, right? So this is how the filter option is. So filter false. The same thing, the same way, you're going to pass in the function that you want to evaluate in the result. Right? So let's go back with this. Print the actual values. So these are our values. And let's run it. You can see out of our values here, we have the ones that are met and the ones that is not met. This is from default, so you have to just call the list on it to get not any generator. So based on this, we have seen those as the conditions we met using the filter, the custom one we built, and then the filter false from iter tools. We can also create the same function. All you have to do is just as we have this one here, we can also use this option. This way we can also use the one. So if it's false, so I'll copy this one here. The inverse of filter is filter false. So now I can just come back here. This is going to be implement filter false from scratch. Yeah, perfect. Right, so that is a basic understanding. So for I in sequence, if function is true, right, this time it's not going to be true if function is false. Right, now this is going to be my filter false, and I can apply it on our function, which is the same thing we did. So my filter false, and I'll pass in the same thing. So it's positive, and then my number, right? So if I run it, that's giving us the same thing that we had with iter tools. So filter false is just the opposite of filter, right? And having understood how filter works, you are looping through it, you're applying the function. If that particular function meets it, or if the condition is met, if it is true, you return it, right? If it's not true, you allow it to go. Filter false is the inverse of filter. We have seen how to work with filter. So thank you for watching this tutorial. In case you have any question or contribution, you can post in the comments below, and check the link below for some interesting materials to help you master machine learning and then Python. See you another time, and let me know how the video was. Bye.